Okay.
I'll tell you when we're live.
All
Because
right.
sometimes this thing is just like the most. I'm not the best with this technology when it starts, and
Yeah, well, me neither. That makes two of us.
I mean, but the difference is I should be because I've been doing this for like 4 days now. But I haven't got any better at knowing when we're talking and when we're not. It's been pretty funny though because I caught some people saying some pretty funny things uh, about other people before I even know it was gone. All right, we're joined this hour by Donald Abdul Roberts, who's going to tell us about his experiences as a revolutionary in Detroit, as well as he's you know been an auto worker, been I mean, he saw the rise and fall of so many things there. So, Donald Abdul, can you tell us a little bit about your experiences um, growing up in Michigan?
Sure, I can do that. Um, I was born February the 8th, 1947 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Uh, I the juvenile system sent me to Detroit in, I would say, Christmas Eve of 1964. I was living on the boulevard and Mac, between Mac and Benson, at a halfway house. And anyway, that was in 64. That was my introduction, not necessarily to Detroit, but that's when I started living there. Uh, I got my first factory job, I reckon, uh, in 1965. I worked at McGraw Glass. I worked at Jefferson Assembly. Uh, and then I went to prison in 1966. I started a prison bit, 1.5 to 2.5, Good Friday of 1966. And I discharged in February the 13th of 1968.
So before we get to the prison time, what was it like to work in a glass factory? I don't think for our listeners, when we think of factories, I don't know if a glass factory is the first thing that comes to mind. What was that like?
Actually, I didn't really work there that long, but what I remember about it is that it was a lot of glass, and it was way out in the suburbs, and it almost took me an hour and a half on the bus from pretty much downtown Detroit to out in the suburbs. Um, I didn't work there too long, and I don't remember too much about it. Uh, and I didn't keep that job too long. Uh, the only thing I really remember about it, well, it was a lot of glass. Uh, I do remember working at Jefferson Assembly. I worked on the assembly line, and I worked uh, on the back end as a spot welder, and I was left-handed,
Yeah.
and I got trapped quite a few times, trying to make adjustments in the trunk of the car, uh, and they had to stop the line a couple of times for me because I trapped myself.
Yeah.
And one of the beautiful things about that period is I met Luther Burgess, and Luther Burgess was old Joe Louis crowd and Brewster Projects, and I forget the name of the gym in Brewster Projects, but he was one of those type of guys. So I had a chance to meet him, and we got cool. I didn't work too long there. Anyway, after after I got out of prison in '68, uh, I think first.
Oh, Luther, for those who don't know, Luther Burgess was a boxer in the
Okay.
40s and I think the 40s and 50s. But he was trained by Eddie Futch, who's like known as one of the great trainers of all time. Did you ever get a chance to meet Eddie Futch?
No, I didn't.
Okay, okay.
Hey, but that's cool. You ran that history down like that, man. I knew Luther Burgess was a hell of a fighter. I did know that. And anyway, moving right along, man. That's cool. The other thing about well, I got a job at Uniroyal, which was right next to Belle Isle. And at the time, that's when the stove, there was a big old stove between Belle Isle and Uniroyal. So that was the period that I worked at Uniroyal. And the most interesting thing about Uniroyal is that they had a lot of Southern foremen. And my particular foreman, he was really letting me know that he was the boss. And my first encounter with my foreman went like this, where you're supposed to work overtime. I said, what? He said, yeah, overtime is compulsory. I said, man, that's slavery, man, and walked away. So I got away with that one. Built a lot of tires. I wasn't a real good tire builder at Uniroyal. And one of the things I remember about working at Uniroyal was that I spent a lot of time at Vaughn's bookstore. This would have been the summer of 1968. And I say that because Vaughn's bookstore was only one or two black bookstores in America at the time. And the other bookstore was Chauvel's bookstore in Harlem on 125th and Lenox. And I got a chance to go there one weekend. But anyway, so my experiences at Uniroyal lasted approximately 19 months. That would have been from September of 1968 to 70, June or May of 1970. And what I remember about this period of working at Uniroyal was that I used to go, well, through my connections at the bookstore, I ran into the Republic of New Africa. And so I got an invitation to go to the rifle range or the shooting range with them every Sunday. And so for every Sunday, while I was at Uniroyal, I went to the rifle range with 35 cars of the Republic of New Africa, and we just practiced shooting. And one of the beautiful things about that I really loved is that they had a system. Once we left the rifle range, they had a check-in system on every car had to call someplace to say that everybody got safe wherever their destination, whatever their destination was. So that was one of the things that I learned from the Republic of New Africa while I was working at Uniroyal. And so between Uniroyal, Vaughn's bookstore, and Republic of New Africa was my first beginnings of getting involved in the movement. And one of the things that my practice was, I would go to, I worked the midnight shift at Uniroyal. And so every Saturday morning, I would make these bookstore rounds, and I would eventually wind up at Vaughn's bookstore as my last bookstore for the day. And one of the things that I remember about that there was a right-wing bookstore that was the headquarters for Donald Lopsinger. And I used to go there on a regular basis because they had a lot of good books on Black people at this bookstore. And I remember one of the books that I bought was it had some pictures of Martin Luther King talking to Ben Bella, who was one of the leaders in the Algerian Revolution. And I never thought that about Martin Luther King. So moving right along, so this one particular Saturday, I bought me a couple of books, and so I would my little practice was to buy just enough books that would last me, that I would read that week until the next week. And so one of the particular books that I bought this particular Saturday was Black Jacobins by C.L.R. James. So I'd been reading the book, and so I'm on this bus called the Shane Bus. And the Shane Bus was the longest bus ride that I could make from downtown Detroit all the way out to Lasher Road. But anyway, I'm reading this book, and there's this part in Black Jacobins where the slaves is, this book is about the Haitian Revolution, Toussaint the Overture. So anyway, I get to this part, and I'm reading about the drums, where they use the drums to play up in the mountains to have these meetings to figure out what the slave master is talking about. So I'm reading this about the drums, and so as the bus is going by, I hear some drum. I say, what the fuck going on here? So I jump off the bus and shit. And I walk back up, and this is when I first met Aaron Ibn Pori Pitts. And he was playing the drums in front of Dodge, Maine. And he's got this long hair. He's got this African look about himself. I look at the dude. I walk up to him. I say, what's this all about? He said, this is a wildcat strike. I say, well, what's that? What you striking about? He says, come to the meeting tomorrow on Oakland and Owens, and you can learn about what the strike is about. I said, what time? He said, 9 o'clock. I said, all right. I said, in the meantime, I had just got out of prison in February, and it weren't like I was a tough guy and nothing like that. But I had discharged from Marquette prison, which was a maximum security prison. I had started off in Ionia. I blew Ionia, then I blew Jackson. And then because I didn't really have a lot of time, they discharged me and they gave me all my good time back. And so I discharged from Marquette. But anyway, the way things went, I bought me a Jim Boy. And this is a long knife, and it was, one of those Walt Disney type of things. And so I had it. So I put my hand on my Jim Boy. I said, can I bring my Jim Boy with me? He says, if you want to, but you won't need it. And so I walked away. And so I got up early the next Sunday morning. And now this is really dynamic, and this is true. I ain't lying about none of this. So anyway, I wanted to get there early. And so I started early. And so I got off the bus. I was living on the Boulevard at Agnes at the time. And so I could just walk up to Jefferson, catch the Jefferson bus downtown, and then catch the bus to the North End, and which was East Grand Boulevard. I could get off at the Boulevard and then walk down to Owens from the boulevard. So anyway, I am I'm walking, and so just before I get to Owens, there's this little sanctified church, and I hear this singing on and shit, and I said, "Oh man, they really doing something in here." And so I stood up against the wall, and I listened, and I listened real closely. And to be quite frank, it took me some years to figure this out. But this sanctified church, this particular Sunday, Mahalia Jackson was singing, and the choir was the I think the Maple Singers was their name. The Maple Singers choir. But anyway, the point that I'm making about this choir and Mahalia Jackson is that I had met her two sons in prison between 66 and 68. And like I said, it was years later before I figured out that was their mother's choirs that were singing. But anyway, and so I got in the meeting, and so in the process of walking in the door, it was stinking. It smelled like old piss and roaches. I said, I'll be damn, what kind of joint is this? Then it dawned on me, this must be the real McCoy. So I go on in, and there's a lot of workers and this, that, and the other. And there's a lot of workers from different plants, but most of them was from Dodge, Maine. And anyway, so they do a little roundhouse, and people get up and say what plant they're working from. I get up and say I'm from Uniroyal. And this is when I met Alan Ray, which is Marion Kramer Baker's brother, who's famous in drum, League of Revolutionary Black Workers. So he said, yeah, I'm from Uniroyal too. And so if I remember correctly, a guy named Turner was moderating the meeting. So he says, you two get together. So in the meantime, while I got the microphone, I tell him, I say, well, look, I got $10 here. I said, this is my beer money. And I like what I see. And I'm going to donate these $10. But I'm going to tell you this here. If I find out this is an undercover NAACP meeting, I want my money back. So anyway, after the meeting and stuff, they bring General Baker to me. Or we meet, and he said, yeah, man, was this the guy that said what he said? And so Jen pulls out his letter to the draft board. And I look at it, and I read it, and I said, I'll be damned. I said, well, this is an elegant letter. I said, I went to the draft board. I didn't say it like you said it like that, but I told the draft board that if they sent me to Vietnam, I would join the other side. And so that was my introduction to drum. Let me think about this for a minute.
So in your story there, you talked about meeting Marion Kramer. Can you tell our audience a little bit about Marion Kramer and her role in Detroit?
Well, when I met Marion, this was before she married Jen. And she worked at a little spot that I didn't know too much about over on Grand River. But what I did know at the time that I got involved with at the beginning of drum, and I'm saying this was around October of 1968, she helped organize sisters that would do typing. And so Drum used to put out, well, they used to put out leaflets on a regular basis at the different plants. Well, at this particular time, it was only Dodge, Maine. And so that's how I met Miriam. And plus, no, that's not true. The way I met Miriam was through Alan Ray, her brother. Alan Ray worked at Uniroyal. I worked at Uniroyal. And so from day one, from that first day we met, we collaborated then and we collaborated now. He's one of my favorite people in history. He's one of my favorite people in life, like Miriam. And Miriam was his sister. So that's how I met Miriam. And yeah. And so anyway, moving right along. One of the things that I remember that happened while I was at Uniroyal was the fact that the Republic of New Africa had a shindig, a little meeting type thing at New Bethel. And this is the New Bethel incident that became so famous in the city of Detroit. And I was there, and this is one of the most outstanding speeches that I ever made in the history of my involvement in the movement. And it went something like this. True story, y'all. Anyway, I was sitting there listening, this, that, and the other. They was talking, moving around and stuff. So different people got up and spoke and this, that, and the other, and I'm listening and on and on. And so finally, Papa Wells got up and started speaking. And when I say Papa Wells started speaking, I had met Papa Wells that earlier in the summer of 1968. And Papa Wells was, he started the movement in New York. And he was part of the old Marcus Garvey movement in New York. And one of the things that he told me that made me fall in love with Papa Wells was that he believed that was Ho Chi Minh who used to sit in the back of the old Garveyite meetings and listen. And that was fascinating to me. But anyway, so Papa Wells got up to speaking, and all of a sudden, I got a sense that I was being recruited. And so I stood up, and Papa Wells had looked directly at me, so I knew I had to stand up and represent something. So I got up. I said, wait a minute. If y'all talking about recruiting me, this is ludicrous in the extreme. And everybody looked at me all cross-eyed and shit. I said, yeah, I was born to remember the Republic of New Africa. Everybody laughed and shit, this, that, and the other, man. So anyway, I went on. I said, well, if it wasn't for those brothers over there talking about drum, I would be over here. And seeing how the two brothers is over here, I'm going to stay over there because I don't see where those brothers is wrong. But in the meantime, y'all is talking about taking 5 states in the South, but in drum, we talking about we want the whole thing. I said, the way I see it, if we have to retreat off of a general strike or armed general strike, we can retreat to the South where y'all got the 5 states and counterattack from there.
That's thinking.
Yeah. And so that was the gist of my speech. And I might be paraphrasing it right now, but that's pretty much what I said.
Yeah.
And anyway,
So for our audience who might not be so familiar, can you explain what drum was and what what that was and who who were some of its leaders?
oh man, that's a long story there. Drum stood for Dodge Revolutionary Union Movement. And as I understand it, at the time that I got involved was this was the second strike. And the first strike was about the conditions in the plant. And what happened was 7 people got fired. And out of the 7 people, 5 of them got called back. And the 5 workers that got called back were white workers.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 that didn't get called back was General Baker and Chuck Woo. And so I guess after they thought about it, they called another wildcat strike. And this was to get Jen and Chuck back. And this is where I entered the picture at Drum. This was when I met Aaron at the second wildcat strike. And in the meantime, one of the features of Drum that I learned that I love so much was the fact that they would put out these leaflets, 8.5 by 14, and fold them in half. And they would have stories about the different departments inside the plant of who did what in reference to the oppression, the unsafe working conditions. And as I remember about the conditions at Dodge, Maine, was the paint shop. And I'm not really for sure about this, but I'm thinking they had a line at Dodge, Maine, where you had to weld. The line was above the workers' heads. And so they had to hold the guns up over their heads to weld the different parts on the chassis. And one of the worst departments, that was one of the worst departments, and that was mostly, for want of a better term, mostly black workers. And there was another part, was the paint shop, which was ugly. And in the paint shop, oh man, is where they painted the cars. And the spray off the paint was like not good. And you may or may not, I'm trying to think, was they wearing masks back then? But you didn't have too much protection, I'll say that. And so in the paint shop, you had to breathe these films, and the paint would get on you. You had to maneuver the paint gun this way and that way, and on in that direction. And so the worst thing about that job was smelling those fumes. And as I remember about paint, they used a lot of lead in the paint and other toxic fumes. And so you always had a bad taste in your mouth. You always had bad smells in your nose. And so that was one of the safety issues that I remember about Dodge, Maine. Ron March, he was one of the people who worked at Dodge, Maine that became a prominent figure. And I can tell some stories about that. There was Grover D. I can tell some stories about that. Grover D was the one who gave me some Nina Simone tickets for some of us that was at the office to go to a Nina Simone concert at Pine Knob, where she sang "Young, Gifted, and Black." And anyway, yeah, Grover D. And let me see here. There was Don Jackson. I forget what department he worked in.
Can you tell us a little bit about General Baker?
Sure, I can tell you. Well, when I got to drum, General Baker was already fired. So that was that on that part. When I first like I said, when I met Jen at my first meeting, and that's when he read his letter to the draft board, which was pretty famous, which wound up being in a book that was written called Black Nationalism in America. And one of the co-authors of that was Charles Simmons. Yeah, I got a whole bunch of General Baker stories. Come to think about it, but
tell us one. Tell us one.
Yeah, well, okay, well, oh man, son of a gun. Oh man, you really hitting on the subject there. Well, anyway, I like this story. There was a bar on Calvert and Woodward, and I'm thinking the bar was called the Calvert Bar. And at this bar, there was this group called Three C's. And the Three C's was out of Danville, Illinois. And there was a hotel downtown called Wingate Hotel. And after the bar closed, it was a little after hours set. And sometimes before the bar closed, there was a set at Wingate's. He had a little bar in this hotel. And so me and Chuck and Jen used to go there a lot. And when I say a lot, I used to go to this bar, and I found out that they used to play at Wingate's motel or hotel. I can't remember which one it was. But anyway, and so I used to talk Jen and Chuck into going. And so the three of us would go to this, go there and listen to the Three C's. And so the Three C's had a standard tune called Danville Stew. And this one day, we was there, and they played Danville Stew. And so after they did that tune, I asked them if they knew if they could blow Angel Eyes by Gene Ammons. And so they tried. Well, the guy on the saxophone, he blew a couple of bars of it. And so when he did that, I got up and I faked like I had a saxophone, and I blew a couple of bars. You dig? Standing there. Well, actually it went like something like this. So anyway, I went through some shit like that. And so they came on over to the table and stuff where we was sitting at, and we was laughing and joking around. And so the funny part about when they came over, I told the waitress when they came over, I said, give these boys a fish sandwich and a bottle of beer. And the thing about it was they didn't have no fish sandwiches at Wingate. So everybody laughed when I said that, and they brought the beer. And come to find out, Danville Stew was pork and beans and hamburgers. So that was how that tune got named. And
When you found out the recipe for Danville stew, were you excited or disappointed?
oh, I was excited because it was a hell of a tune. And you know that it was pork and beans and hamburgers. I said, damn, man, that's ghetto for real. Uh, Another story. This is one of my favorite stories, and this is pretty much between me and Jen. Uh, I had gotten fired from Uniroyal, and I was so glad when I got fired because I wanted to find out what revolutionaries did every day. So Jen said, "Oh man, you can come on and move into the office." And sure enough, that's what I did. And the only thing that I bought from my apartment was I had a hell of a paperback collection of all black paperbacks. And so I brought that. I bought my 30-06 and I bought my boom box. And so anyway, the office on Cortland and Third had just got bought this, that, and the other. And I had just got fired this, that, and the other. And Didon and Mitch was living there before I got there. So when I got there, it was me, Didon, and Mitch who lived in the office. And so anyway, moving around and things and carrying on and this, that, and the other. So Jen comes in one day and he hands me this piece of paper. I look at it and it's a birth certificate. And I see that Dr. Ocean Sweet had signed his birth certificate. Now, the story about Ocean Sweet is a hell of a fire story. And I'm not really going to tell too much about it except for this here. Ocean.
I'm gonna do is tell what you're gonna tell, but then maybe later we'll make one video called like the Legend of Ocean Sweet, right? We'll just do
okay. Well, I'll say this part
we'll
about.
Make it a one-off. We'll make it a one-off. No, but give us a preview of Ocean Sweet.
Okay, well, he was a doctor. Well, he came from Florida. His people, when he was 5 years old, they rushed him out of Florida because some people got hung down there where they was living at, and they moved to Ohio. And anyway, he became a doctor, and in the process, he decided he lived in Black Bottom, and so in the process of that, he moved out of Black Bottom a couple of blocks into the white folks' neighborhood, and they had a shootout where he lived at, and 2 white people got killed, and this was in 1925. And so there was a trial, and he got acquitted. No, they had 2 trials, and in both trials, they acquitted all 11 of them, and Clarence Darrow was the lawyer. So anyway, that's the story about Ocean Sweet, Dr. Ocean Sweet. So anyway, so when Jen handed me this and I'm reading where Dr. Sweet had signed his I looked at Jen, I said, Jen, how did you arrange that? And man, we both laughed at each other, man, in the sense that if he signed that, then how could he have arranged that? And because Jim was already a hell of an organizer, that was the joke about that, is that he had organized his birth certificate and his birth for Dr. Sweet to sign it. There's a lot of stories about Jen, man. Man, well, them the 2 that I like. Well,
so right now we're facing this pandemic, right? And in the prisons, is where people are kind of there's a lot of danger in this moment, right? So you having been a prisoner, when you think about the fact that there's this virus that if we're in close contact to each other, it's likely you're gonna get it. What do you think about the current moment? I mean, what needs to be done?
Ooh, I would say they fixing to do it. As we speak, I already know that, first of all, the prison movement is isolated. So it's hard to get information in or out. And one thing I do know, if it's bad out here, it's double, triple, quadruple in prison. And there is so many revolts going on as we speak that I wouldn't call it unbelievable, but I already know it's a torture chamber. The medical circumstances in prison is diabolically below par. It's a diabolical torture chamber. It's organized to maintain control. And when I say control, I'm talking about mass control. The medical staff in the prisons around the country, and I would pretty much would say around the world, are recycled rejects from the public. And when I say that, I'm saying nurses, doctors, all of them who done did heinous crimes. I knew this one nurse, and she actually told me her story. She was a nurse out of Texas, and the hospital, no, the rest home got busted. And what they was doing was padding the death of crack babies. And the crack baby would die, or they would kill the baby, and so they could get more babies, and on like that. And so when the prosecutor went to prosecuting, she turned state's evidence on a bunch of them. And so she wound up in the prison system in MDOC. And oh man, so it's the same thing with the doctors. The doctors who work in prison are pretty much doctors who done did some crazy stuff out here. They got sued, and because the system don't want these doctors to go against the system, they get them jobs away from the public, and that's where they hide all the rejects in society. So when you're talking about the I've been out of prison. Matter of fact, let me say this like this. April the 28th, I will have been out of prison 20 years. I did 21 straight years minus 40 days. And that's another story. But anyway, from what I do know is that, like I said, it's a torture chamber. And they got to be figuring out ways. Well, for one, the easiest way to resist is to don't eat. They don't really beat you up for not eating, and they try to negotiate with on that tip. But knowing what I know, there's different levels of resistance. So there's inmates or convicts that are out in population. Their resistance would cover like not coming out of the chow hall or not locking up if there's yard. But what I'm really thinking is at this particular time, all the prisons or the majority of them are on some kind of substantial lockdown where they can't come out of their cells. And so, and if they have a yard periods, they're only going to let out 4 or 5 at a time so that they don't have that many people coming out, because they already know it's going to be some shit. So this is based upon my experience. I have no contacts whatsoever from anybody in prison. And so I can't really speak on any of the details of what I think, or I meant to say, of what's actually going on. But based upon my past experiences, I already know there's got to be some massive resistance, and the isolation of the prison system won't allow for some detailed explanations of what the conditions are like right now.
So wow, yeah. So you've been floating around this phrase "first aid." First aid, first aid. Where did you did you coin that? Or did you hear it somewhere? Or what's the or why is it why first aid?
Well, I think it began with General Baker died May the 18th, 2014. And I really didn't want to go to that, his last. I just didn't want to see him that way. And so I stayed in Ann Arbor while he was in the hospital. And my thoughts at that particular time that this was truly the end of a particular era in the history of not only the labor movement, but also the communist movement. And for myself, I had never honestly declared myself a communist. And when the League of Revolutionary Black Workers split, I hung around for a couple of years, and I met Nelson.
So we've lost Abdul. Hopefully he'll be back in a moment. All you gotta do is rejoin the link. This has been a really, really great session. I mean, I've learned a lot. I have a background in knowing members of the League of Revolutionary Black Workers for many years now. My own kind of travels. I knew Jen very briefly, but I've known Marion and known Maureen in Detroit. So Marion Kramer, Maureen Taylor, I've known Daryl Wasteland Mitchell. I've known many of the really important people within that framework. Let's see, I'm trying to reconnect to Abdul. All right, this is going to be a little more difficult than I thought. We're going to reconnect to Abdul another time to have him kind of close his thoughts out. We've done such things before. This is kind of the COVID era, so it's not the production is the production is a home studio, but the the quality of information is not the type nothing you can see on television. So this is real people telling their stories that are involved in mass things, and have written books and who have changed the course of history. So I'm really excited to be doing this whole series, and definitely gonna have Abdul back on to finish out his thoughts. So thanks for joining us. See you soon.